how do I become a Buddhist and how I convert to Buddhism? This is an FAQ that most of the Buddhist monks being asked by people. They ask like, how can I become an officially Buddhist? How can I convert to Buddhism? Well, when you ask that question, it is very difficult to give an exact way of converting to Buddhism, like ceremonial way, because in other religions there is this process. There is a ceremonial way of converting to that religion, like baptism, right? But it is in Buddhism, and there is no process or there is no ceremony of baptism, right? But the process, the way that is a process that is very closer to the conversion, that you can say converting to Buddhism, is going for refuge to the triple gems, or going for refuge to the 3 refuges in Buddhism. Now, we've discussed about the 3 refuges in Buddhism in another video. If you like to learn about what 3 jewels and 3 refuges in Buddhism are, you can check out that video as well. So the 3 jewels or 3 refuges in Buddhism is, first one is the Buddha, right? Or the historical Buddha himself. And the second jewel or second refuge in Buddhism is the Dhamma, the Buddha's teachings. And the third refuge is the Sangha, or the monastic community. So if you follow the Buddhist path, if you follow the Buddhist path, one must take refuge in these 3 refuges, right? Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. Buddha and Buddha's teachings and the monastic community. Now, why we go refuge to the Buddha? There's a reason behind it. We go for refuge to the Buddha considering him as our inspiration, right? We always look up to his life, way of life, right? And we adopt those valuable qualities to our life. We try to follow his life, character, right? Although we can't follow it for the perfection, we must try to do that. We must learn from his life, right? So as the inspiration, as the role model of our spiritual path, spiritual practice, we go refuge to the Buddha. That is the purpose behind going refuge to the Buddha. And the second, the Dhamma, the Buddha's teachings, why we go for refuge to the Buddha's Dhamma or Buddha's teachings is because it provides the framework for the spiritual practice, right? It provides this framework to us to follow the path. Okay, so we must have the confidence to follow that. It doesn't mean that you have to blindly believe it, right? It doesn't mean that you have to have the blind faith. You cannot have any questions, right? In Buddhism, there is no anything that is unquestionable, right? Everything can be questioned. Right? You may have doubts, you can have doubts, right? Doubts are always seen as sign of improvements according to Buddhism, because Buddha says that if someone thinks, right? If someone thinks about the reality of life, he may have some questions, right? So that he goes on asking the questions, what is the meaning behind this life, right? What should I know? How should I see this life? So when he asks questions, then he gets the answers, okay? In that way, he must seek something. So in Buddhism, we follow the Buddha's teachings by asking questions and by self-exploration and putting it into practice, not just because merely we believe in it. Okay, that is the purpose of going refuge to the Buddha's teachings. It provides us the spiritual framework. And why we go for refuge to the Sangha or the monastic community is because they provide us the spiritual support, the living spiritual support, right? So to get that spiritual support, we need to have confidence on them. So what we do, we go for refuge to the Sangha, right? So these are the 3 refuges in Buddhism. Now, how to go refuge to the Buddha and Dhamma and Sangha, or these 3 jewels and 3 refuges? There is this traditional way of doing it, that is by chanting it, that Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, Dhammang Saranang Gacchami, Sanghang Saranang Gacchami. We chant it for 3 times. And that is the traditional way of going for refuge. You can closely say that this is the way of converting to Buddhism. But here's the thing. Just because you said it, or just because you chanted that Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, I go for refuge to the Buddha, I go for refuge to the Dhamma, I go for refuge to the Sangha, the monastic community, doesn't mean you actually become a Buddhist, right? Because all these refuges follows, and it provides a purpose. We need something to do in it. So what we need to do is we need to follow the path, follow the practice, follow the Buddha's advice, right? If you're following the Buddha's advice and if you're putting it into practice, okay, if you're practicing it within you, then you can call yourself as a Buddhist. But understand, the term Buddhist did not exist in the Buddha's time, right? One of the closest words that we can find that is we can call to as a Buddhist is an ancient word is Buddha Savaka, which gives the meaning of listeners of the Buddha or followers of the Buddha, right? So to become a follower of the Buddha, you can't just merely chant it and just it becomes okay. It doesn't happen like that. Okay, what you have to do, if you are a follower, you must follow it. You must practice it, right? And confidence in Buddhism or faith in Buddhism always seen like a questionable way of understanding, right? Explore it by yourself, see it for yourself, find it for yourself, and then take it into yourself. Okay, so that is the way to become a Buddhist in the true Buddhist, right? Remember that just because you said that you are a Buddhist, or just because you chanted these lines that I go for refuge to the Buddha, doesn't mean that you truly become a Buddhist. What you have to do is put it into practice. Live in that practice. Okay, so I hope you got some idea about how to become a Buddhist. So in a short answer, there is no conversion or no baptism in Buddhism. What you need to do is follow the Buddha's path. Keep this in your mind. Namo Buddhaya.